Independence came to over a dozen states peaceably, but in the Belgian Congo, freedom was followed by rioting and army mutiny, a reign of terror and disorder. United Nations troops were called in to avert total chaos. For months, the political pattern kept changing with kaleidoscopic speed, until pro-red Premier Lumumba was seized by the forces of strongman Colonel Mobutu. But the struggle for power...
They dissolved his body in sulfuric acid and ground his bones to dust. Not to hide evidence of a crime, but to erase him from history. This is Patrice Lumumba's story, and everything you thought you knew about Africa's independence is about to change. On June 30th, 1960, Congo became free. The ceremony was extraordinary. Patrice Lumumba, a 35-year-old postal clerk turned liberation leader, stood as the nation's first democratically elected prime minister. But when King Baudouin of Belgium tried to claim credit for bringing civilization to Congo, Lumumba didn't bow. He spoke truth to power. He reminded Belgium of the atrocities, the rubber terror under King Leopold II that had killed millions of Congolese. He spoke of forced labor, of whippings, of extraction without mercy. The West was furious, and they decided he had to go. According to declassified CIA documents, Alan Dulles, the director of the Central Intelligence Agency, immediately classified Lumumba's removal as an urgent and prime objective. President Eisenhower himself had reportedly wished that Lumumba would fall into a river full of crocodiles. What followed was one of the most coordinated assassination plots in modern history, a shared process of murder orchestrated by the United States, Belgium, and even the United Nations. But here's what most history books won't tell you. The CIA's own chemist, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, was tasked with creating a poison. He arrived in Congo with vials of toxins, ready to slip them into Lumumba's food. The plan failed, but only because the station chief had cold feet. Instead, Lumumba was arrested. On October 14, 1960, just 4 months into his leadership, a CIA-backed coup removed him from power. He was imprisoned, beaten, and tortured. According to Belgian parliamentary investigations released in 2001, a document signed by Belgium's Minister of African Affairs ordered Lumumba's definitive elimination, physically if possible. On January 17, 1961, just 67 days after taking office, Lumumba was transferred to Katanga province, to the territory of his sworn enemies. Everyone knew what that meant. The leader of Katanga, Moise Tshombe, had already declared that Lumumba would be executed on sight. Within hours of arriving, Lumumba was brutally tortured and executed by firing squad under the command of Belgian officers. But the humiliation didn't end with his death. A Belgian police officer named Gerard Soete personally dismembered his body and dissolved it in sulfuric acid. They ground his bones to powder and scattered them so thoroughly that no grave could ever be found. They wanted to ensure that Patrice Lumumba would never become a martyr with a tomb to visit. They wanted him erased from memory itself. And yet here we are, 63 years later, still talking about him. Because Lumumba had said something that terrified the West more than any weapon. He had said, "Without dignity, there is no liberty. Without justice, there is no dignity. And without independence, there are no free men." He believed that African nations had the right to their own resources, their own futures, their own dignity. That's why they killed him. And here's the part that should shock you. After Lumumba's murder, the CIA funneled $500,000 to the very people who had orchestrated his death. Joseph Mobutu, the general who captured him, became a CIA-backed dictator who ruled Congo for 33 years, plundering the nation's wealth while its people suffered. This wasn't an accident. This was strategy. This was how empires maintained control. So drop a comment. Did your history teacher tell you this? Subscribe to Ikemefuna History TV for the stories they buried. Share this with someone who needs to know what really happened in 1960, because history isn't something that happened, it's something we choose to remember or forget.